Well, let me mention just for a few minutes the criminal justice system. I don't think there's been anything that has frustrated me more in Parliament than to see a government who talks tough on crime, and yet you just continue to see tragedy after tragedy. Section 745 of the Criminal Code, I want to know why, and I've asked Alan Rock and I've asked Dan McClellan, why should Clifford Olson have to go out there and put all those victims through that torture again, when it wasn't very long ago that they had to bury their kids and those kids are gone forever? Something is wrong in a system where these people are allowed to apply for early parole. Darlene Boyd, the same situation, they're victims. What is it with a government who talks about how much they care about people, and yet when the rights of victims and the rights of criminals conflict with each other, that this government continuously, always, consistently comes down on the side of the criminals? They have it backwards, and we say when the rights of victims and the rights of criminals conflict, the government, the law, should always come down on the sides of the victims, and that hasn't been happening, and we're trying as hard as we can to make it happen. The Young Offenders Act. You could list me 10 tragedies from the Young Offenders Act, and then I could probably list you back 20. Such terrible, sad things happening there. And Anne McClellan, our new Justice Minister, who's my next-door neighbor in Edmonton West, and often my next-door neighbor on the plane back and forth to Ottawa, said in her first major speech this summer after she was put in as Justice Minister, she said to the Canadian Bar Association, we're going to get tough on young offenders. We're going to get tough on violent offenders, and we're going to get tough on victims' rights. And you know what was in the throne speech a month later? That they were talking about sentencing, and they were going to make it easier, actually, for criminals in terms of sentencing, not harder. And I say, Anne, what is wrong with this system? Larry Takahashi, the Balaclava murderer, convicted of 30 rapes, talk of maybe 138 rapes, 3 concurrent life sentences he received, and he's out on day passes in Mission, just as of this week. And I don't want to see this guy at the Edmonton airport when I get off the plane. And I don't want Anne McClellan to have to see him when she gets off the plane either. And there's something terrifying about that that is wrong, wrong, wrong. Now, when people say, oh, the reformers just want to hang them high, no. We believe in rehabilitation. We believe in fairness in sentencing. And we believe that some people can be rehabilitated. But there are a lot of instances in this country where you see violent offenders who have been labeled psychopathic, sociopathic, with virtually no conscience, where violent offenders are said that they will, by psychiatric reporters, that they will reoffend again and again and again. I don't want my family being in the situation of victim. And I don't want anyone I know or anyone I don't know in that situation either. And something needs to be done about it. And what we've seen in the last few weeks in question period is Anne McClellan, who stood up when we talked about a murder. Multiple murders have been happening lately. Former spouses bludgeoning to death, entire family members. She said she found it troubling. Andy Scott, who is our new Solicitor General. We've asked questions about him, about Larry Takahashi, and he said, I am accountable to the parole board. We said, Andy, you are the Solicitor General. You know, like, get it straight, Jingles. They should be accountable to you. And he just hasn't got it figured out yet. And he's been the Solicitor General for 3 or 4 months. It's scary. And we want to make sure that these people are held accountable. And ministerial accountability is still important in this country, you betcha. And we'll continue to press them on that. So you say, well, yeah, that's great. You're carrying on. You're doing a good job. We've made some mistakes. I'll never mind admitting that. I made a mistake just a couple of days ago. I had my facts wrong in question period. And so I stood up yesterday, the next day after, and said, well, the reporter, I said to her, well, I haven't done my homework then if I'm not able to communicate this to you. So, of course, the big headline was, you know, Grey makes gaffe. And I had told her that I hadn't done my homework. So yesterday I said, well, Mr. Speaker, I've done my homework now. And if there's any Liberals who get caught for influence peddling and convicted of it, they're going to be going to more than the principal's office, I can guarantee you that, you know. So what's wrong with admitting that you made a mistake? I think it would probably be a first in political history. But boy, I tell you, we have a team that is working together that is really making a difference there. There is a new grudging respect for us. We are being covered in the press. You know, the downtown Toronto people are just not sure about us, and if we don't fit the status quo, then they're not too comfortable with it, and I say, who cares? We are an official opposition from the West. I'll tell you, the day that I think I'm popular in Ottawa is the day I'll be really, really nervous. We are there to make a difference, and I don't want any popularity contest going on in Ottawa, that's for sure. I have been elected almost 9 years now. I'm celebrating my 9th anniversary in March, and I have spent 8 weekends in Ottawa. And so when you see reformers just, you know, haggard and traveling back and forth across the country, you need to know that our homes and our hearts and our mortgages are out here, and Ottawa is just the place that we commute to. And I'm really proud of a bunch of reformers who really believe strongly in that. Rick, I don't know, you've made several trips back and forth already. Hasn't spent a weekend in Ottawa yet. And you know, it's not a bragging session, but I'm just telling you that we don't belong there as such. And we're comfortable about that because we come from a long way away, and our job, our mandate, has been to go in there and shake the system up, and they just don't know what to do with us, and that's just fine by me. I just want to close by a poem that Preston often reads called The Cautious Man. There was a very cautious man who never laughed or played. He never risked, he never tried. He never sang or prayed. And when one day he passed away, his insurance was denied, for since he never really lived, they claimed he never died. You could take some pretty strong political lessons out of that, couldn't you? I could ask the question, how many of you were never politically involved before you got involved with reform? I wasn't. I was never involved at any level of politics. I didn't think it was worth my energy because I didn't think it would ever make a difference. It is possible to live in a country with all the political freedoms, conscience, speech, association, freedoms purchased at great cost by generations before us. It is possible to live in a country with democratic political institutions, free elections, representative parliaments, and ours is a whole lot better than some. You just have to watch the news. It's possible to live in such a country like Canada and yet never live politically. Never go to a meeting, never get involved in an election, never let your democratic voice be heard. It is possible to live in a free country and yet never use any of those political freedoms to do anything other than just support the status quo. When the younger generation asks our generation, did you really live politically during the last decade of the 20th century? How will we answer them? When they ask, what did you do with the political freedoms and opportunities that Canada offers to prepare us for the 21st century? When they ask, why did Canadians do little, or what did they do, if anything, while Democrats and freedom lovers elsewhere were tearing down the Iron Curtain in 1989, dismantling the Berlin Wall, unleashing the economic tigers of Asia, and escorting Nelson Mandela from his prison cell to the presidency of that country? Do you think they're going to be really satisfied with us when we say, wow, we exchanged Jean Chretien for Brian Mulroney? This is a risk. Well, back and forth, you know, we're doing the juggle. It's the Liberal, it's the Tory, and frankly, when you look at them in Parliament, it's the same old story. They're just flip sides of the same loony. I don't think our younger generation will be satisfied. I don't think they should be satisfied. And you know what? I won't be satisfied either until every one of us in this room, every one of us in this province, and everyone right across the country has caught that fire to be able to say, we really lived politically at the end of the 21st century, and that we brought in reforms that made this country a better, healthier, happier, sounder place to live in the 21st century. And that's what I'm really excited about. And thank you for coming and being part of it as well. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you.
Now, if there are a few questions you would like to ask of Deborah GREY, I'm pretty sure we could persuade her to come up here and answer some questions. Anybody got any questions they would like to fire at her?
Just waiting for Deborah to be on the government side of the House so they can stand up and give her Ms. GREY, is it true the other day that the Prime Minister of Canada kind of lost his cool and told you to shut up?
Yeah, I've been, the question was, did the Prime Minister really tell me to shut up? The answer is yes. Yeah, it was fun. You know, I've been asking these questions about this Liberal influence peddling with the Liberal fundraiser in Quebec, who they said, oh, these are just unfounded allegations, you're just causing trouble. And he said, you cannot make those assumptions and those innuendos. And he said, I want you to know that he is the best, person and blah, blah, blah. And he said, we are above board and everything's just fine and that should make you shut up. The honourable member shut up. And I was kind of surprised because, I didn't think he'd say that. And he knew as soon as he said it, he just, jumped up on his feet on a point of order and said, well, I didn't mean to say that. And I said, well, isn't that a pity you said it anyway? So the next day I came back and said, I will not put up, I will not shut up until he coughs up who some of these criminal guys are raising money for his profit. And then, of course, then it just went again. But anyway, don't mess with the kid is my motto. And if you saw me at the Edmonton indoor shooting range last week, then you really know you better not mess with the kid.